Hey everyone, welcome back. So today I want to cover, we'll be going over Nmap and Wireshark. So this one will kind of be building off of the last video where we set up our home lab using Metasploitable and Kali Linux. So we'll just kind of go through the basics of how both Nmap and Wireshark work. Both are super useful tools that pretty much everyone will need, whether you're attacker or defender. You can use Nmap to see what lives on your network as a defender, and then as an attacker, you can use it more to see what's on a network and what ports are open, everything like that. And then Wireshark is great for really getting down into like how these protocols are actually working and how the individual packets are being sent between hosts and everything like that. So I figured that was a really good place. Everyone can use those type of tools, so it's a good place to start. All right, so over here, I've already got mine running. But so if you went through the last video and set up your home lab, everything should be good to go. We'll just double check. So for Metasploitable, come up here, check your settings, go to network, and then you should be on the VirtualBox host only adapter. And same thing for Kali. So you come up here, network, host only. So that way they're both on the same network, right? If you did run into any issues or you can't figure out how to get that going, just let me know. Put it in the Discord, and then we will get everything straightened out for you. So that way you can kind of run through all this stuff and test it on your own as well. So we can come over, I'll pull up Metasploitable here. Alright, and with our login of MSF admin and MSF admin. Alright, so that way we're logged in here, and we can just get our IP address by typing in ifconfig. That's all one word. And then so we are 192.168.56.113. Let me just write that down because I always forget. 56.113. Alright, cool. So that's all we really need Metasploitable for this. It's basically just our target that we're going to be using for Kali. So we can just minimize that. And we will pull up Kali here. Alright. So first things first, what we can do is we can start up Wireshark. So we'll do sudo Wireshark here in the terminal and put in our password. Alright, that will start up Wireshark right there. And then I did want to show, so if you go new tab or just open up a new command prompt, whatever. So this is for people who may not know, for Linux, anytime you want the manual for a program, so I'll pull up the one for Nmap. So you just type man Nmap, and then that'll pull up the full manual. So this is going to give you a lot more information than just doing like the -h or --help like normal. So I'll show you. I mean, it's super long, but it basically gives you every detail you could want to know about that program. So like still scrolling. Anyways, yeah. So that works for pretty much every Linux program. If you just do man and then the name of the program that you want to type in, and let me zoom in on that just so everyone can see, versus where you use like the -h where you have nmap -h, and that gives you still a lot of info, but this is more about how to just use it. There's a lot less info here than there is in the manual, so that's just a little tip for everyone. If you're not super familiar with Linux, that will definitely help you out all the time. Alright, so before we get started, we will cover the TCP three-way handshake, just because this is going to come into play with a lot of the Nmap scans. So Nmap, basically what it does is it's the network mapper. So what it does is that it will send out packets to a whether it's an IP or an entire subnet, it sends out packets and then it analyzes the response from those other machines and then tells you whether a port is open or closed or not. Right, so say if we are hosting a web server on another machine on our network, it'll send out a packet to port 80, and then however that machine responds, it'll say, okay, port 80 is open because there's a web server running on that host, right? So real quick, let me get the little drawing out for the TCP three-way handshake. All right, so here we have our basic three-way handshake diagram. It's pretty simple to understand. There's a lot more that goes into it, but this is all we need for the purposes for today. So we start out, we have over here on the left, we have our client machine, and over here on the right, we have our server, right? So the first step in the three-way handshake is the client is going to send out a SYN packet to the server. And basically the whole point of this is that both the client and server in the TCP protocol use sequence numbers so that they can be in sync, right? So that means when the client sends data, the server will say, okay, I know this is how much data you sent, this is your new sequence number, and then the server will send the same thing back to the client, so that way they're always on the same track and no data gets missed, right? That's the point of TCP, is that no data gets lost in transit, okay? So that first pack is the client basically sending, hey, this is my sequence number, that's the SYN, and then the server says, okay, yep, I see your sequence number, and here's my sequence number, right? That's the SYN ACK. So it's sending out the synchronize and the acknowledgement of the client synchronize right there, okay? And then so finally the client will send out the acknowledgement saying that it now knows the server sequence number and everything's synced up from that point, right? So that way, those are the three packets, the three main packets, right, for the three-way handshake. And then we'll also see fin packets and reset packets, which is just how the connection shuts down. There's a little bit of difference, but all we really need to know is that that's how the connection ends, right? So you'll either see a fin or a reset most of the time. All right, so that's the basic three-way handshake. So this is for the TCP protocol, which is all we're really going to cover today. You can also scan UDP with Nmap, but that's a little bit more complicated, and for our purposes we don't really do that. When you're doing like CTFs, most of the time it's only going to be on TCP, because UDP is not as reliable when it comes to scanning and everything. So alright, give me just a second, we'll go back over to our Kali machine and actually get started. Alright, so now that we're back over here on our Kali machine, we still have our Metasploitable machine up as the target, as we can see right here. Oops, sorry. Just like right here. Alright, so our Metasploitable machine is still up, still has the same IP address. So now we will start going over what Nmap and Wireshark actually look like, right? So we'll start off with Nmap, and then we'll see how things actually work under the hood with Wireshark. So I'll just show you guys a brief scan. So I know we went over this in the last video, but so we'll do Nmap-T4-A, and then our IP address, which is 1. Okay, give me just a second. So we'll go, didn't have numlock on. So that's Nmap-T4-A 192.168.56.113, which that's our Metasploitable address. So this shouldn't take too long. But so basically what it's doing is it's reaching out to 192.168.56.113, and it's scanning all of the ports on that machine, and it's going to come back with us and give us a report of all of the ports that are open and what services are running on those ports. So now would be a good time we can kind of cover some of the options that we have in here. So this T4, this is our time flag. Oh, course, as soon as I start to explain. So this T4, that's our timing flag. So you can choose anything between 0 and 5. 0 is going to be super slow. 5 is going to be super fast. It's all about whatever speed you want to pick. The intention is that a slower scan is not going to get picked up as easily as a super fast scan, but most of your IDS and IPSs are going to pick up a scan regardless of how slow they are. So just, you know, I usually go with T4. T5 tends to miss things, and I don't really have any issue with T4 missing open ports or anything, so that's why I choose that one. And then this dash A that I used here. So Nmap has the ability to do OS scanning, version scanning, and some scripting as well. So this dash A uses all of those options. There's also a dash O option and a dash V option. So the dash O is for OS scanning, the dash V is for version scanning. So you can do each of those individually, and I'll show you in the results down here how that looks. So you'll see in the results we have our port over here that it scanned, the state, service, and the version. So that's the version scan that I was talking. If we didn't do the dash A, we could have it just come back and say, okay, port 21's open and it's running VSFTPD 2.3.4, right? So the dash A is going to give you the most information. It's also the quote-unquote loudest. So we'll just kind of start going through this. Obviously, Metasploitable, it's meant to be vulnerable, so there's just a ton of ports open. Normally, if you're doing a capture the flag or something like this, there will only be maybe like 3 or 4 ports open. But there's like 15 on Metasploitable. So this breaks it down pretty nice. It's pretty self-explanatory. So we have port 21, which port for FTP. So then this will show logged in as FTP. It just gives you some information about the version number and everything there. And then you'll see down here, this is like some of the scripting part of it. So it'll say anonymous FTP login allowed, which all that means is that you can FTP has an anonymous login option, which should be disabled by default, but for Metasploitable to be vulnerable, it is allowed, right? And then so it just kind of goes through every other port that's open and shows you, you know, hey, this is OpenSSH, this is Telnet, SMTP. These are all the services running on those ports, right? DNS, HTTP, and then we just have all kinds of ports open, right? So this is just kind of the basic of what a Nmap report looks like. And then we can, we'll just start kind of digging through some of these other options and then look at them in Wireshark so that we can know what's actually going on and being sent back and forth between Nmap and our target. Alright, so we will start by pulling up Wireshark. There's 2 different ways you can do it in Kali. So if you come over here, click on the little Kali dragon in the top corner, you can search for Wireshark and it'll pull up right here. You can click on it or open it and open it that way. Or if you have a command prompt open already, you can just type in sudo Wireshark and that'll pull it up just like that. Alright, so these are all the different interfaces you can listen on. We're not going to go into all of those. Just know for this, for our purposes, it should just be this top one. Mine's ETH0. Yours might be different, but it should just be the top one and only one on there if you followed the whole tutorial. And it'll also show you the IP address that it's listening on right there, so that can help you figure out if you have more than one network adapter for your virtual machines. But so for our purposes, it'll be ETH0. And then so my plan is we're just going to look at some scans. We'll just scan port 80, and then that way we'll just see what a scan looks like in Wireshark and what Nmap is actually doing. Alright, so if we minimize Wireshark real quick, we'll open up a new tab. So this time we'll just run, we'll start out with the SYN scan. So we'll go Nmap, let me zoom in here. So we'll go Nmap dash lowercase s uppercase s, and then we'll go dash T4, and we'll just do dash P. So the P stands for port, and we're going to do port 80, and then our 192.168.56.113. Alright, so this dash lowercase s uppercase s, that is going to be for our SYN scan. This is also sometimes called a stealth scan. So what this scan type does is it doesn't fully finish that three-way handshake that we went over. So you'll have the SYN, SYN-ACK, and then a reset instead of doing the final ACK. So that way it's like it starts the connection and then it just shuts it down once it finds out that that port's open, right? Even though it's sometimes called the stealth scan, it's not like super stealthy. Like I said before, like the timings, most of your IDSs and IPSs are going to pick this up regardless. So just know, usually just call it a SYN scan, because that really is what it's doing. And like stealth scan is just kind of not a useful term for describing it, right? Because it's not all that stealthy. So we'll go through and we will run this. Oh, of course, right? So you have to run sudo nmap dash lowercase s uppercase s dash t4 dash p 80 192.168.56.113. Alright, so for the SYN scan, you do need to be sudo to run that scan, right? So this will be super quick. Give it just a second here. Alright, so now that's done, and we can pull up our Wireshark and stop our capture. So what we'll do up here is for our display filter, we'll just search for TCP. That way it'll only show us the TCP connection that we just made. So let me full screen this here and zoom in so everyone can see. So this part down here, all of the hex, we're not going to worry about. We're not really concerned with that. And that way we can see these better up here. Alright, so this is the SYN scan, right? So as we can see, we'll have our source IP, our destination IP, our protocol length, and then information about that packet, right? So Wireshark is showing us each individual packet that gets sent out through the Nmap scan, right? So we can see this is literally our, almost like the three-way handshake, except we have this reset here at the end. So we have 192.168.56.108, which was my Kali machine, and then we have the 192.168.56.113, which is the Metasploitable machine. So we can see that SYN packet getting sent out from Kali to Metasploitable, and then Metasploitable sending back that SYN ACK, which is the second part of the handshake, and then Kali sending out the reset saying, okay, never mind, just close the connection. So because at that point, Kali knew that that port was open, right? Because it sent the SYN ACK back. Okay, so yeah, that's the basics of the SYN scan. So now we can go back through. We will start up a new capture, and we will go and do the TCP connect scan. Alright, so for this one, we're going to do nmap dash lowercase s uppercase t dash t4 dash p 80.192.168.56.113, right? So this is the same thing, except we're using this dash st option instead of the dash ss option. So this one is considered the less stealthy of the two, right? Because we're making that full TCP handshake. So we'll see the SYN, ACK, and then reset. But again, neither one of them is really stealthier than the other, but just know this one, the ST, is going to send more packets. Right, so we will run that. Again, this should be pretty quick. You can see all the packets popping up here in the background on Wireshark. Give it just a second to finish. Alright. So we can come back over here, stop our capture. We're going to see more packets, and we can see here we have the SYN, ACK, reset ACK, right? So same thing, 108, my Kali machine sending out our SYN packet. And then, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so it did to port 80 and to port 443, which is HTTP and HTTPS, right? Which is weird because I did only port 80, but maybe it just automatically scans 443 afterwards. But anyways, so we can see the SYN, ACK, and then reset ACK, right? So that's, like we said, it's completing that three-way handshake and also sending that reset packet, right? And you'll see it just keeps doing the same thing again. SYN, ACK, reset ACK, right? So that's why that's the TCP connect scan, is because it's actually completing that full handshake and then shutting down the request once it knows that that port's open, right? So those are the two major scan types. So the SYN scan and the TCP connect scan. There are other ones. There's a FIN scan, which just sends a FIN packet. There's a Christmas scan, which sends a whole bunch of different packets. But so those we're not really going to cover. You won't use those very often. That's more for like, I believe, for firewall evasion and things like that. So we're not super concerned, especially at the beginner level here. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps everything up. You know, as usual, make sure you're only testing Nmap against your Metasploitable machine. Make sure you have it on your host-only adapter, because, you know, companies will pick up scans, right? They will notice if they're being scanned, because that's, as we saw, it's sending out a bunch of packets. And yeah, I'll even show you. So we had, let me see. So just doing that one scan of port 80, we had 22 packets, right? So if we start up another scan, and we'll just do a basic scan of everything. So we'll do all of the ports for the Metasploitable machine, just to see how many packets actually get generated doing that. Because like, it is pretty obvious if you're scanning something, right? Like, they will notice it is illegal. Whether they decide to come after you or not, who knows? But don't do it. Only test against your Metasploitable machine, right? That's what we have it for. That's what our lab is for. So yeah, so that one super fast scan just generated 2,000 packets, right? So you can see that's what a full scan would look like. You have all the SYNs, all of the resets, right? So it's pretty obvious, right? So that's why we have our home lab, so we can learn these things in a safe environment without reaching out to the internet or anything, right? So yeah, I think that pretty much covers Metasploitable and Nmap. Like I said, feel free use the Nmap manual to learn whatever you know. There's a lot more to Nmap. Nmap is a huge tool. There's so many different types of scans and different types of scripting options and how you can change timing or change the types of packets that are being sent. So go ahead, read through the man pages of stuff like that. Um, Pull open Wireshark, see the packets that are actually getting sent back and forth between Metasploitable and Kali, and yeah, just kind of dive in. It gets pretty interesting looking at the actual individual packets that get sent. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, as usual, just put it in the Discord, and yeah, hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.